Hi guys, can you all see the slides? Guys, can you all hear me?
Yes, miss.
Okay, and can you all see the slides as well?
Can see, miss.
Okay, all right. So then, yeah, so we will, like in yesterday's lecture, there was a part that we couldn't discuss. So I will do that part first and then I'll move on to today's lecture now. Okay, so before we start today's lesson, um, we have to discuss this part. Okay, so yeah, so we discussed until here in yesterday's lecture note. We discussed until here. Okay, so we need to start from here. Okay, so yeah, so just to the topic that we were talking about was organizational changes. Right, so yesterday we discussed that there are three types of organizational changes, which are developmental, transitional, and transformational. And we also discussed that there are certain reasons for organizations to undergo changes, like the reasons for organizations to go through changes, why organizations need to change. There are certain reasons. So these are the reasons why organizations might undergo changes. Okay, so organizations might have to change because of the implementation of a new technology, because of mergers and acquisitions, and because of the changes happening in the leadership, and because of the changes happening in the organizational culture, or else because of the times of a crisis, like crisis times. Okay, so these are the reasons why organizations undergo changes. Okay, so now you guys know what are three types of organizational changes and what are the reasons for them. What are the reasons for these changes? Okay, so now we have to discuss. So I need to start from this point onwards. Okay, so now we need to discuss how to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so yeah, so like when an organization or a company does a change, right? So these changes can be developmental changes, transitional changes, or transformational changes. Okay, so when this kind of a change, okay, so like one organization, right? One organization might undergo only developmental changes, or else um, transitional changes or transformational changes, or else so there is no rule that an organization should undergo only one change. An organization can undergo two types of changes at the same time as well. Okay, so developmental and transitional, for example, development and transitional changes, they both can happen at the same time, or else all these three can happen at the same time as well. Okay, so there is no rule that at a time you should undergo only one type of change. There is no rule like that. There can be situations where an organization undergoes two of these changes or even all three of these changes at the same time as well. Okay, so however, when an organization changes something, when an organization undergoes a certain change, it can be a developmental change, transitional change, or a transformational change. So when a change happens inside an organization, it affects the people working in that organization. Okay, so when any of these changes, developmental, transitional, or transformational, when any of these changes happen inside an organization, it will definitely affect the people working in that organization. Okay, so sometimes, so if you, for example, if we take transitional changes for an example, okay, so transitional changes means a change that moves an organization away from its current state to a new state in order to solve a problem. Okay, so transitional changes means when an organization moves from its current situation to a new situation. Okay, so for example, automation. You can see the example automation written over here. Okay, so automation means the implementation of machineries and equipment. Right, so yeah, so when something like this happens, like for example, if we take automation, okay, so let's assume that a certain company undergoes transitional changes by implementing automation. Okay, so now like this organization is concentrating more on the implementation of machineries or equipment. Okay, so during this change, you can see there are lots of new machines and lots of equipment being implemented, being fixed in the organization, in the company. Okay, so that is an example of a transitional change, implementation of machines or equipment. Okay, we call this automation. Okay, so I mean, for example, like especially when you need to increase your productivity, increase your efficiency, you will have to go for automation. You will have to implement machineries and other equipment to increase productivity and efficiency, because machines are much more productive and efficient, more than machines are more productive and efficient than human beings, right? So when there is a situation where you need to really increase your productivity or efficiency, you can go for automation. You can implement machines or equipment or whatever in the company. Okay, so if a company does that, so like during this transition, so this is an example for a transitional change, right? So during this change, so when this change is happening inside the organization, um, like lots of machines and lots of equipment are being implemented, are being fixed in the organization inside the company, right? So the people who are working in this company might not be comfortable with these machines or equipment because they are new machines, they are new equipment, right? The people are not uh, the the people in the company are not used to these machines or equipment, because these are the machines that you never had before. Like you are implementing it now, so you didn't used to have these machines or equipment in the company before. Okay, so the people in the company, the people working in the company will feel a bit anxious um, about this implementation of new machines and equipment, because now, I mean, like people are not used to it. These machines and equipment are new, they are not used to it, right? So they are not used to have these many machines or equipment before, right? So now the environment of the organization is being changed, right? So this change can make the people nervous. Okay, because now they are experiencing something new, like machines and equipment means something new. Okay, so they can be a bit anxious about this because they don't know how to handle these machines. They don't know how to handle the equipment. So it can make them a bit anxious. And and also if you take mergers and acquisitions. Okay, so mergers and acquisitions are also transitional changes. Okay, so mergers, if you take mergers for an example, mergers means when you merge with another company, you combine with another company and work as one unit. Okay, so this can also cause some sort of an anxiousness in um, in the people working in the company. Okay, because right, because like it's not something that they experienced before, right? So you are merging with another company. So mergers means when you merge with another company, when you combine with another company and work as one unit. Okay, so this can cause anxiety in the people working in the organization as well, because it's something new to them, right? So they are used to, I mean, they were- they are not used to mergers before, right? So mergers is something that is new for them. Okay, so the people can feel a bit anxious about it. Okay, and also if you take transformational changes means the changes that happen in the culture or the core values of the organization. Okay, so this can also cause some sort of anxiety in the people working in the company, because now they are experiencing something new. They are experiencing changes in their work culture and their core values. Okay, so it's something new that they are experiencing. So once again, the people might feel a bit anxious about this as well. Okay, so as you guys can understand now, changes can make people anxious, and like changes that happen inside organizations or companies can make people anxious because changes are new things, right? Changes are, I mean, because the people working in the company are used to something else, right? I mean, the people working in the company are used to certain procedures, certain processes, and like they are used to something else. So when a change happens, it's a new thing for them. A change means a completely new thing for the people working in the company. Okay, so since it is new, the the people in the company will find it challenging. Okay, so because it's something new happening in their company, so people will find it challenging, and sometimes people will find it a bit difficult to adapt to these changes, and sometimes people will feel kind of anxious about things. People will start worrying about things. Okay, so changes can changes can cause this kind of things. Okay, so yeah, so changes can cause anxiety, worry in people working in the company. Okay, because changes are something new, so people might start worrying about these changes, and people might feel anxious about these changes, and people sometimes will feel blank about, sometimes people don't have any idea at all about the changes. And so for example, if you take the previous example that we discussed, the implementation of machines and equipment. So when you implement machines or equipment, new machines and equipment, you need to provide some sort of a training to the people who are handling those machines, right? Because they are not used to these machines before, so they should be trained. Okay, so likewise, there can be, because of these changes, because of these changes happening inside the company, um, people might feel anxious, people might worry about these changes, and people sometimes do not understand anything about these changes. So there are situations like this. Okay, so as leaders, we should understand how to manage the impact of these changes. Okay, so as I explained to you guys up to now, changes can cause different things in people, right? I told you that they might feel anxious, they might feel worried, they might not understand how to use certain machines or equipment. Okay, so likewise, there can be certain challenges that the people are facing when there are changes happening inside the company. Okay, so the leaders of the company should know how to manage these changes, how to manage the impact of these changes. Okay, so impact means like how the people are going to be affected. Okay, impact means balapana. Right. So like the leaders of the company, or the leaders of the company should know how to successfully manage the impact of these changes. Okay, so managing organizational changes can be complicated. Okay, so it is not an easy task. It is a complicated task. Okay, so leaders should somehow the leaders should make sure to manage the impact of changes successfully. Okay, so how can leaders manage the impact of changes? Okay, so the leaders must align people to the reason for the change. Okay, so that means like leaders can communicate. So there, if a change is happening inside a company, there is a reason for that change, right? There is a reason for you to do that change in the company. So the leaders must communicate this reason to the people. So then people know, okay, this is why this change is happening in the company. So at least they know the reason now. So when people know the reason, it might make them feel less anxious, or people may worry less. Once they know the reason, it will sort of calm them down. Okay, so that is one thing that the leaders can do. Okay, so you have to always align people to the reason for the change. Okay, you have to you have to reveal the reason to the people. Okay, so this is why we are doing this change. Likewise, you need to reveal the reason to the people. Okay, that will sort of calm them down. Okay, so yeah, and as leaders, the leaders in the company should manage their employees before, during, and after the change. Okay, so so when a change is happening inside the company, there are three stages. S- There are three stages. Before the change happens, during means while the change is happening, and after means after the change has happened. Okay, so before, during, and after the change. Okay, so these are the three stages of changes. Okay, so the leaders should know how to manage their employees in all three of these stages. They should know how to manage employees before a change happens, during the change, and after the change happens. Okay, so they should manage their employees in all three of these stages. Okay, so now let's see what can you do to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so we will discuss about seven things, seven strategies that you can follow to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so give me 1 second, guys. All right, so we can start discuss. We can start to discuss how you can how the leaders can manage the impact of changes. Okay, so so we will be discussing 7 strategies that you can follow to manage the impact of changes. So the first thing is put people first. Okay, so put people first. Putting people first is one thing that you can do to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so putting people first means you need to prioritize people. Okay, so you need to give first place to the people working in the company. You need to prioritize them. Okay, so I will explain this by giving an example. So we can take the same example that we took before, the automation, implementation of new machines in the company. Okay, so in such cases, the people, the machine operators, sorry guys, Okay, so the machine operators are the people who are handling these machines, right? So they will feel a bit anxious about this change because they are used to operate something. I mean, they are used to operate the machines that were in the company like before, right? I mean, for example, if a company started in 2010 and they implement some machines, and let's say in 2015 the company is doing some major changes to their machines. They are uh, like removing the ones that they already have, and they are fixing some new machines. So if you take this example, so the machine operators, they were used to operate the machines, the older ones they used to have until 2015, right? So I mean, in that example, if you assume that there is, I mean, just for an example, if you assume that a person is starting a company in 2010 and they fix some machines in the company, and they run the company with those machines for with people and with those machines for 5 years, and in 2015, let's say they are doing some major changes to these machines. Let's say they are removing a lot of machines that they are having right now and implementing new machines. So the if you evaluate in such cases, if you evaluate the situation of machine operators, so these machine operators are used to operate the machines which were there in the company from 2010 to 2015, right? So they are not trained, they are not aware of how to use the newly implemented machines, right? Because they are new machines, the structure is different, the way you handle the machines are different. So um, they don't know how to use them, right? And if you take another example, if you take a even if you take a science lab, okay, so science labs also are being upgraded um, with machines and with equipment time to time, right? So if you if you bring a new machine to if you buy a new machine or a new equipment for your science lab, okay, so science labs have technicians, right? Technicians are the ones, technicians are the people who help you out in the science lab, okay, with technical stuff. Okay, so every science lab has at least one technician or few technicians. Okay, so let's say you are buying something new, you are buying a new equipment to your science lab. So if the technician doesn't know how to handle this equipment, he or she is going to feel a bit anxious about it, right? Because they don't know how to operate it. Okay, so if they had to help someone out, how can they help them? How can they help other people? Because they don't know how to operate it themselves. So then how can they help other people, right? In other people in the lab, right? So in such cases, you need to put people first. Okay, so you as a leader, you need to prioritize people. Um, you need to prioritize people. You need to communicate with your employees, communicate with your workers, and ask them um, what makes them anxious. What are the worries that they have. Okay, and yeah, so in such cases, like, so if your machine operators, if you implement new machines, and if your machine operators are feeling anxious because they don't know how to operate the machines, so you can provide a training for them. And even for the lab technicians, if they do not know how to operate a certain new equipment, you can provide a training for them. Okay, so this is something that you can do as a leader to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so you have to put people first, you have to prioritize people, communicate to them, and understand what your workers, I mean, you when you communicate to your workers, when you communicate with your employees, you will realize what are the issues that they are facing. So if they are feeling anxious or if they are feeling worried, what are the reasons for those feelings? Why do they feel so? And is there anything that they do not understand? Okay, so if is there anything that your workers don't understand? So then in such cases, how can you help them out? Okay, so likewise, you can like to know
Yes,
all
ma'am.
these things. Yes.
Ma'am, in generally, when we introduce a new activity in an organization to make work easier,
Yeah.
there is a group of people who first oppose that pullback, and
Yes.
we should change their mind and attitudes. What are the advantages of this new innovation? What are the easier pathway for how you can easily work, and we can we if we give prior knowledge to them, we can get our goals.
Exactly, Janaka. Thanks a lot for adding that point. Yes, you are right. Okay, so like you said, when we implement a certain change in a company, like most of the time, 99% of the time, there is a group of people who back out, who kind of hesitate, who kind of talk against the change. Okay, so but there is a reason for them to talk against it as well, because they might uh, because maybe they do not understand why you are doing this change, and sometimes they do, like you said, they do not know the advantages of this change, and sometimes they feel anxious or worried. Okay, so there can be several reasons why they for them to do that, for them to back out. Okay, so in such cases, like you said, you can always like describe about the advantages of this change. What advantages means, you have to explain, you can explain what are you getting in return from this change. Okay, and how it will like how it will be like when we get these advantages, how it will be beneficial for you guys, like your salaries might get increased, and there can be several benefits. So what are the benefits that you are getting as a result of this change? You can explain that. And yeah, and the reason for change also, you can also explain to them why you are doing this change. Okay, so yeah, so that's a really good point. Okay, so those are the things that you can do to handle that kind of situations. Okay, so yeah, so when changes happen, you have to always, as the leaders, you have to prioritize people, you have to put your people first, and communicate to them and see if there is something that they do not understand. Okay, if there are certain things that they feel anxious or worried about. Okay, so you need to find these things out by communicating to your people, and then you need to help them out. Okay, so you can give them a training, or you can counsel them. Okay, so likewise, you can help them out. Okay, so that is one thing that you can do to manage the impact of change. And another thing that you can do to manage the impact of change is work with a change management model. Okay, so change management model is a model that we use to manage changes. Okay, so there are several change management models. Okay, so you can see the names, some examples of change management models here. The Prosky's model, Levin's change management model, Kotter's change management model. Okay, so these models are the change management models suggested by different people. Okay, so you can work with this kind of a change management model as well in order to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so that is something else that you can do to manage changes. Okay, and empower employees through communication. Okay, so this is also one thing that you can do to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so you can empower your employees, you can empower your workers by communicating with them through communication. Okay, so yeah, so as I explained just now, um, when you are communicating to your employees or to your workers, you can tell them, you have to tell them why this change is needed, what is the reason for the change. Okay, so why this change is happening, why the company decided to implement this change. Okay, so you can explain them the reason for this change. Okay, and yeah, and then in addition to the reason, you can also talk about the advantages of the change. What are you getting in return as a result of this change? Okay, so when you, especially when you talk about the advantages of a change, it will sort of make people motivated. Okay, because when you talk about the advantages, you are telling the benefits that you are telling them the benefits that they are getting in return as a result of this change, right? So when people know the benefits that they are getting, it makes them sort of motivated. Okay, so if they are feeling anxious or worried, this will communicating the reason and communicating the advantages of the change will sort of calm them down. Okay, because especially once they know the advantages or the benefits of the change, when they know what they are getting in return as a result of this change, it will calm them down. Okay, then the employees will feel okay with whatever the change that is happening in the company. Okay, and when it comes to communication, another important thing is this should not be a one-time information transfer. Okay, so communication means okay, so I mean, for example, so the manager, so if a change is happening, let's say the manager uh, asks everyone to gather into the meeting room, and in one meeting, the manager describes what is the reason for change, what are the advantages, what are you getting in return, all of that, and it's done. That should not be done. Okay, so it should not be a one-time information transfer. It should not, the communication should never be a one-time transfer of information. Okay, so as I said just now, if a manager plans to hold one meeting for all the people and describe the reasons, describe the advantages, and then finish it off, it is not a good practice at all. Okay, so it is something that a leader or a manager should never do. It's something that the leaders or the managers should not do. Okay, so communication should be consistent. Okay, so communication should not happen only once, it should be consistent. Okay, so you should empower your employees. You have to talk to your employees, communicate with them, ask them whether they are feeling okay with the changes, are they feeling worried, are they feeling anxious, are they feeling confident now, and what are the doubts or the problems that they are facing, what are the challenges that you are facing. Okay, so likewise, these things should be communicated in a consistent manner. Okay, so these things should be communicated regularly. Okay, communication should never be a one-time process. It should be communication should be communicating with your employees should be consistent. Okay, you should do it in a regular manner. Okay, and another important thing when it comes to communication is that the communication should be a two-way process. Okay, so when you are communicating with your employees, it should not be just you talking to them. Your employees should also talk to you. Okay, so your communication with your employees should be a two-way process. You are talking to them and they are also talking to you at the same time. It should happen in that way. Okay, so you should not be the only one who is talking. Okay, so we have certain two-way communication methods that we can follow in inside the company. Okay, so we can have surveys, focus groups, informal feedback collection. Okay, so focus groups means focus. So you guys might be wondering what is a focus group. So focus group is when a group of people come together and discuss about a certain topic. Okay, so focus group discussion is that when a group of people come together and discuss about a certain topic. Okay, and you know what surveys are. Okay, so yeah, so like sometimes so I told you that communication should be consistent. It should happen regularly, right? So sometimes the managers or the leaders will not have enough time to have regular meetings. Okay, so sometimes, like due to the huge workload, they might not have enough time to always hold meetings and talk to your employees. Okay, so in such cases, you can go for options like surveys, Google Forms. Okay, so like meetings is not the only method of communication. Meeting is just one option. Okay, so in addition to meetings, there are some other options as well. Okay, so especially if you find it uh, difficult to allocate some time to have regular meetings, if you are really busy and if you can't find enough time to hold meetings each and every day, apart from having meetings, rather than having meetings, you can go for other options like surveys, Google Forms. For example, if you make a Google form to gather your employees' opinions, you can make the Google form and then the Google form has a link. So you share the link to your employees. So the employees will fill them. Okay, and then you can see their responses once they filled in the form. Okay, so that doesn't take time, right? Like meetings, it takes only just few minutes to make a Google form. Okay, and it is easier for the employees also because they can fill the form whenever at whatever the time that they need, right? I mean, for a meeting, there is a fixed time. You have to come for the meeting at that time. But if you take something like an online survey or a Google form, they can fill it whenever they are free. Okay, so it is easy for employees also. Okay, so yeah, so in situations where you find it difficult to allocate time for communication, you can go for options like surveys, Google Forms, likewise. Okay, so if you find it's really difficult to find time to have meetings, there are some other options as well, like surveys and Google Forms. Okay, and yeah, so somehow the main point to remember here is the communication should be consistent. Okay, so communication, as I told you just now, communication is not always about meetings. There are several other options as well. Okay, so you can use all these options to communicate with your employees and empower them. Okay, so why employee empowerment is important? Because when your employees feel empowered, they perform better, right? When you empower your employees feel valued, and when your employees feel valued, their performance gets better. And when your employees perform better, eventually the performance of the organization will also be better. Okay, and with better organizational performance, there are so many things that you can get in return. You can increase your customer base, you can gain more income, gain more profits. gain reputation in the society. Okay, so employee empowerment leads to all these things. So it is very important for the managers and the leaders to communicate consistently uh, with their employees and empower them. Okay, and active leadership is another strategy that you can follow um, to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so active leadership. Okay, so even when you see the word, you can understand what does this mean. Okay, so active leadership means being an active leader, like performing your leadership role in an active manner. Okay, so how can you be an active leader? Okay, so you should be responsible for achieving change goals from start to finish. Okay, so you should be, as an active leader, you should be responsible for achieving change goals. Okay, so change goals means the goals or the objectives that you have uh, related to the change that is happening in the company. Okay, so for example, so we discussed about several types of changes, right? So mergers and acquisitions is an example for a transitional change. Okay, so just for an example, let's assume the change that is happening in a company is mergers and acquisitions. So what are your goals? What are your goals related to mergers and acquisitions? And if the change is automation, what are your goals related to automation? Okay, so change goals means the goals or the objectives that the company has uh, related to the change that is happening in the company. Okay, so change goals means goals or the objectives related to the change which is happening in the company. Okay, so the leaders should be responsible for achieving these goals from start to finish. Okay, so the leaders should be there um, from start to finish in order to achieve these change goals. Okay, and yeah, and these active leaders, as an active leader, you should also help your organization to understand um, what does this change means, right? What is this change about? Okay, so you need to help the organization understand what the change means for their teams, the organization, and the marketplace. Okay, so you should be able to help the employees or all the people working in the company to understand what is actually happening in this change. Like, why do we need this change, and why do we need this change at this particular time? Like, why didn't we wait for for another few years to implement it? Why did we implement it now at this point? What is the reason for that? And what are the advantages of the change? And what are the risks? Okay, um, so as an active leader, when you talk to your employees about the change, you should not talk only about the advantages, you should talk about the darker side of it as well. Okay, so when you implement a change, a certain change, there can be lots of advantages and there can be few disadvantages or few risks as well. Okay, so these risks should be communicated to the employees as well. Okay, so you should be transparent and you should communicate these risks as well to your employees. Okay, so active leaders are the people who help the company understand what this change means to the company. Like, why are we what this change is about, why are we doing this, and why are we doing this change at this particular time, and what are we getting in return, what are the risks that we might face because of this change. So this all this information um, should be conveyed to the employees or the workers. Okay, and yeah, and also as a leader, you should ensure that all the employees stay actively involved in the change. Okay, so you have to make sure that all the employees, all the workers actively contribute to this change. Okay, and yeah, and you need to be sort of alert about the situation as well. Okay, so once you implement a certain change in the company, you need to stay alert. You need to see what is, you need to attentively, you need to pay attention to what is happening, and uh, is everything going as planned, or are your employees facing any challenges or any problems? Okay, so if your employees are facing challenges or problems, what are the new paths or new approaches that you can take? Okay, so you need to, as an active leader, you need to pay attention to this stuff. Okay, so you need to uh, stay alert about the situation, see if everything is going as planned, everything, if see if everything is going right. And if you see that your employees are struggling, employees are facing challenges or problems, you can think of a new path or a new approach that you can take. Okay, so these are the things which are done by active leaders. Okay, so active leadership is another strategy to manage the impact of change. Okay, and another thing that you can do is make change compelling and exciting. Okay, so we actually discussed this just few seconds ago. Okay, so make change compelling and exciting. So how can you make a change sound exciting? Through clear and consistent communication. Okay, so yeah, so for example, you can, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you can talk about the advantages that the people are getting from this change. Okay, what are the benefits that they are getting? What are what are the good things that your employees get in return as a result of this change? What are the advantages? What are the benefits? What are the good things that you are getting? Okay, so when you communicate this kind of information to your employees, they will find the change exciting. They will not feel anxious or worried anymore. Instead, they will feel sort of excited to contribute to this change. Okay, so this is how you can make a change sound exciting and compelling. Okay, so you can communicate the advantages, or the benefits or the good things that your employees get as a result of this change. Okay, you can communicate this information to your employees so they will uh, find the change exciting. Okay, so yeah, so effective communication answers to the most important question people are thinking. Okay, so the employees, once you communicate the advantages or the good things that they get as a result of this change, the employees will ask these questions from themselves. What does this mean to me? How it will impact my work? Okay, and how can, with a deeper, clearer understanding of the change, employees are much more likely to ask, how can I help? Okay, so once they know what are the advantages that they are getting, they will ask these questions from themselves. The employees will ask these questions from themselves. What does this change mean to me? How will it impact my work? What will I get in return? Um, so, so uh, my manager or my leader told me that these are the good things and these are the advantages that I'm getting from this change. So I need to get these things, I need to contribute to this change. Okay, so how can I help? Okay, so yeah, so this is how you make a change exciting for your employees. Okay, so because when you make the change exciting, make the change sound exciting, the employees will feel motivated and they will definitely contribute. They will give their best for the change. Okay, and pay attention to high and low points in momentum. Okay, so this is another strategy that a leader can use to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so once you implement a change in the company, there will be high points and there will be low points. Okay, so high points means when everything goes as planned. Low points is when there are problems, when there are challenges, when things are not going as planned. Okay, so as a leader, during the high points of change, during your high points, you should know to celebrate this with your employees. Okay, so during the high points, you should make sure to celebrate these high points with your employees. And during low points, you should communicate with your employees. You should be more empathetic towards your employees. You need to communicate with your employees and see if they need any support, if they need any additional support or reassurance. Okay, so at low points, that is how you should behave as a leader. You should communicate to your employees, see if they are feeling all right, and do they need any emotional support, or do they need any educational support. Okay, likewise. Okay, so and then you need to provide this. Then you need to, once you like, if you realize that your employees need some sort of support, you have to provide that support to them. Okay, so yeah, so as a leader, you have to be proactive. Proactive means when self-initiative. Okay, so you have to take the initiative instead of waiting for someone else to take the initiative. You have to be you have to take initiative. You have to be self-initiative and take the initiative by your own self. Okay, so uh, that is another strategy that you can follow to manage the impact of change. Okay, and don't ignore resistance. Okay, so this is another thing. This is the final point. This is another thing that you should do to manage the impact of change. Okay, so resistance means, okay, so let's read the first point over here. Leaders should pay attention to signs of change resistance, including inaction, procrastination, withholding information, and spread of rumors. Okay, so we just discussed a few minutes ago, we discussed that once you implement a change in the company, there will be a group of most of the time, most of the time, there will be a group of people who back out, right? The people who are so who the a group of people who back out, right? So this backing out is called change resistance. Change resistance means when you are resistant towards a change. Okay, so change එකකට කැමති නැති වෙන එක තමයි change resistance කියලා කියන්නේ, when you are resistant towards a change. Okay, so you can see change resistance in several ways. Okay, so you can observe change resistance in several ways. Okay, so how can you observe change resistance in people? Okay, so when people are not active, inaction means being inactive. Okay, so if you see your employees are being inactive, they are not doing their job properly, they are not punctual, they are coming late for the meetings, they are coming late, they are reporting to work late, and they are not doing their job properly. So um, these are some examples for inaction. Okay, so if you see your employees, if you see that your employees are not doing their job properly, that is inaction. Okay, inaction means being inactive. Procrastination means postponing. වැඩ කල් දාන එක. Okay, procrastination means when you postpone your stuff. Okay, so I don't feel like doing this today, so I'll do this tomorrow. And tomorrow you think I can't do this. Tomorrow again you feel that I can't do this today, so I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, so it keeps going on. Okay, so procrastination means that, like, postponing things. Okay, so if you see that your employees are procrastinating, that is also a sign of change resistance. Okay, and spread of rumors. Okay, so some people spread rumors when they do not like a certain change. Okay, so these are the signs of change resistance. Okay, so as a leader, if you observe any kind of these signs in your employees, you should take immediate actions against these things. Okay, so communication is the key to identify resistance. Okay, so you can identify change resistance mainly through communication. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, you can have meetings and you can have surveys, feedback channels, sessions, uh, feedback forms. Okay, so you can use all these options to communicate with your employees. Okay, and through communication, you can identify these signs of change resistance. And once you identify the signs of resistance, then you have to take fast action. Okay, because if you do not take any action, the employees will keep being inactive. They will keep procrastinating. They will keep spreading rumors. Okay, so they will definitely keep doing this stuff if you do not take an action as a leader. Okay, so once you identify the signs of resistance, you should definitely take fast action. Okay, so this is another strategy that you can do to manage the impact of changes. Okay, so guys, so that is the part that we couldn't discuss yesterday. So do you all have any questions from this part? Is there anything else that you did not understand from this part? Or else is everything clear?
Yeah, Miss.
All right. Okay,
Clear,
so
Miss.
all right, guys. Okay, so then we can move on to today's lecture note. Okay, so let me share the today's lecture note. Okay, so this is the lesson that we are going to do today. Okay, so can you guys see the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so guys, give me just 1 minute. Okay, so guys, I will start off today's lecture note. Okay, so yeah, so these are the two main things that you will be learning under this lesson: types of groups and theories of team development. Okay, so under theories of team development, you will learn about two theories of team development. Okay, so these are the two theories that you will learn about: Tuckman's group theory and Belbin's team roles. Okay, so first of all, we will discuss with the types of groups. Okay, uh, we'll discuss the types of groups or the types of teams. Okay, because before we start discussing about team development, you need to know what are groups and what are teams, right? So first of all, we'll discuss about the types of groups, and then we'll go into the theories. Okay, so types of groups, right? So usually there are two main types of groups: formal groups and informal groups. Okay, so these are the two main types of groups. Okay, so let's look at the definition of formal groups. Okay, so a formal group is a designated work group defined by the organization's structure. Okay, so a formal group is a group which is formed by the organization. Like you form formal groups for organizational needs, right? So that is the definition of a formal group. A formal group means a group which is formed uh, by the organization due to organizational needs. Okay, and informal group means the opposite of formal groups. Okay, so let's look at the definition of informal groups. A group that is neither formally structured, now organizationally determined, appears in response to the need for social contact. Okay, so informal groups is the opposite, it's the exact opposite of formal groups. Okay, so in informal groups, like informal groups are not formed by the organization. Okay, and you do not form informal groups to achieve organizational objectives. Okay, so you form informal groups just for the need of social contact. Okay, so just for the need of having friends. Okay, so informal groups means you can take, so for example, a group of friends, a group of friends can be taken as an example for an informal group. Okay, because like when you hang out with your friends, you do not friends can be there in formal groups as well, but in a formal group you are working towards an organizational goal or an organizational objective. But in informal groups, um, there are no organizational objectives or organizational goals. You have informal groups just for the need of social contact. Okay, so yeah, so like hanging out with your friends, it can be considered as an informal group, because when you hang out with your friends, you do not hang out. I mean, hanging out is not an organizational objective, right? It is not an organizational goal. Okay, so you hang out with your friends for fun, to have fun, for to have some good time. Okay, so that can be taken as an example for an informal group. Okay, so formal groups uh, are uh, formal groups are designed by the organization to achieve organizational goals, and informal groups are not designed by the organization, and you do not have any organizational objectives or goals to fulfill in an informal group. You create informal groups just for the need of social contact. Okay, so yeah, so now we can talk a little bit more in detail about the formal groups and informal groups. Okay, so as I mentioned just now, in formal groups, you are working towards organizational goals. Okay, so the major purpose of a formal group is to perform specific tasks and achieve specific objectives defined by the organization. Okay, so the main reason, the main purpose of formal groups, so there should be a purpose of having formal groups. So what is the purpose of having formal groups? Okay, so the main purpose, there can be several purposes, but the major purpose or the main purpose of a formal group is to do specific tasks and achieve objectives or goals set by the organization. Okay, so an example for a formal group is a group of individuals cooperating under the direction of a leader. Okay, so so if when a group of people is working under the direction of a leader or a manager or a supervisor, that can be considered as a formal group. Okay, because you do not because when you work under a leader or a supervisor or a manager, when a group works under a leader or a manager, there are specific tasks to perform. Okay, and these tasks are defined by the organization. Okay, so like these tasks are not the tasks that you guys decide, right? These tasks are decided by the organization. Organization is the one that tells you these are the things that you guys need to do. So organization is deciding it, right? So these tasks are defined by the organization and you have specific objectives. So this is an example for a formal group. Okay, so a group of people working under the direction of a supervisor or a manager or a leader can be considered as an example for a formal group because they do specific tasks, they do have specific organizational objectives. Okay, so uh, so we can consider them as a formal group. Okay, so here you can see some more examples of formal groups: departments, divisions, task force, project groups, quality circles, committees, boards of directors. Okay, so these are some other examples of formal groups. Okay, so here you can see the characteristics of formal groups. Okay, so these are the characteristics of formal groups. Okay, so the first characteristic is they are approved from some authority. Okay, so the whoever the people who are in the formal group are approved from some authority. Okay, so a formal group is a group which is approved from some sort of an authority, right? Because if you take an informal group, if you take a group of friends who are hanging out, if you take that, they are not under the authority of anybody, right? There is no one control, there is no one to control them. But the formal groups are exact opposite. Like if you take a formal group, there is an authority to control this group. Okay, so a formal group is a group which is approved from some authority. Okay, and they have there is a fixed division of labor. Okay, and so fixed division of labor means like you have a fixed, in a formal group you have a fixed number of people, right? So in when it comes to informal groups, if you feel like you need to make more friends, you can join more people to your group. Okay, and sometimes you can remove people from the group also. In informal groups there are no rules, right? So in informal groups, if you feel like you need more friends, you can join few more people into the group, uh, and sometimes you can lose people also, you can remove people also from the group. Okay, but when it comes to formal groups, there is a fixed number of people. Like if your organization, if your company tells you that you should have 25 people in the group, you should have only 25, not less than 25, not more than 25. Okay, so there is a fixed number, and and the labor or the tasks will also be divided within the group. Okay, so you do this task, you do this one, yeah, I'll do this. Likewise, the labor or the tasks are also divided among the group members. Individuals are assigned specific responsibilities. That is what I just mentioned. Okay, so all the individuals in the formal group will be assigned with specific responsibilities, with specific tasks. Okay, and there are personal interactions between the group members. Okay, so even though these groups are called formal groups, even though these groups are formal, there can be still personal interactions between the group members. Okay, and the group members are rewarded. Okay, so the group members can be rewarded in so many ways. Okay, so like the salaries can be increased, or else you can give them some benefits. Okay, so like some other benefits other than the salary increments can be promotions. Okay, so these are few ways in which you can reward your group members. Okay, so in formal groups, so you don't have salary increments, promotions, benefits in informal groups, right? So in formal groups, that is there. Okay, so you can reward your group members. Okay, when they perform really well in the group, you can reward them accordingly. Okay, so formal groups can be further classified into two other groups: command groups and task groups. Okay, so formal groups can be further classified into command groups and task groups. Okay, so these are two types of formal groups. Okay, so let's see what are command groups. Okay, so let's look at the first point mentioned here. A group composed of the individuals who report directly to a given manager. Okay, so a command group is a group of people who directly report to a manager, to a given manager. Okay, so for example, an academic department chairman and the faculty members, because the faculty members directly report to the academic department chairman, right? And the director of postal audits and his 5 inspectors. Okay, because the inspectors directly report to the director of audits. Okay, so these are some examples for command groups. Okay, and let's see what are task groups. Okay, so task groups, let's look at the first sentence mentioned over here. Task groups consist of people who work together to achieve common tasks. Okay, so even when you see the word, you can understand the meaning of this, right? Task groups means a group of people who are working together to achieve a certain task, to achieve a certain task. Okay, so yeah, so you need to achieve, you need to do these tasks, you need to achieve these tasks or goals within a specific time period. Okay, so there is a specific time period, a specific duration in which you have to complete these tasks. Okay, so there is a certain duration for you to complete these tasks and achieve the goals. Okay, so in command groups, I told you that you are reporting directly to a given manager, right? So in task groups, there are no immediate a supervisor or a manager like that. Okay, so there is no immediate supervisor or a manager that you have to report to. Okay, so that is a difference between command groups and task groups. There are no immediate supervisors, immediate superiors in task groups. Okay, and so task groups are called task forces as well. Okay, so task forces is another word for task groups. Okay, so yeah, so all the command groups. Okay, so all the command groups are task groups. Okay, so all the command groups are task groups, but the reverse is not true. Like we can consider all the command groups as task groups as well, but all the task groups are not command groups. Okay, so you can see there is a difference, right? Because there are no immediate supervisors, immediate superiors in the task groups. So we cannot consider all the task groups as command groups, but all the command groups are task groups. Okay, so all the command groups are also task groups, but the reverse is not true. Okay, so here you can see some examples for task groups. Okay, so examples of assigned tasks. So we just discussed that a task group is a group of people working together to achieve a certain task. Okay, so these assigned tasks can be the development of a new product, or else it can be the improvement of a production process, or the proposal of a motivational contest. Okay, so these are some examples of assigned tasks. Okay, and so here are the examples of task groups: ad hoc committees, project groups, standing committees. Okay, so these are some examples for task groups. Okay, so task groups and command groups are the two types of formal groups. And then we have the other main category of groups, informal groups. Okay, so we discussed about formal groups. So now we are looking at the informal groups. Okay, so informal groups are the natural formations in the work. These groups are natural formations in the work environment that appear in response to the need of social contact. Okay, so these groups, formal groups do not appear naturally in the work environment, right? Formal groups, formal groups are made by someone. Uh, Formal groups are purposely made by someone in the workplace. Those formal groups do not appear naturally. Okay, but informal groups do appear naturally in the work environment. Okay, so that is another difference between formal and informal groups. Formal groups do not happen naturally. Someone has to make the groups. But informal groups appear naturally in the work environment. Okay, so they appear in response to the need of social contact. Okay, so in informal groups, you do not have specific tasks to perform. You do not have specific objectives or goals to achieve. You do form informal groups only for the need of social contact. Okay, so a group of close friends that you have in your workplace can be considered as an informal group. Okay, because uh, there are no specific tasks, there are no organizational objectives or goals. You make friends just for the need of social contact, right? So it can be considered as an example for an informal group. Okay, so now we can start discussing about the theories of team development. Okay, so guys, so there are two theories of team development: Tuckman's group theory and Belbin's team roles. Okay, so guys, before I move on to this part, do you all have any questions about the types of groups? Is that part clear to all of you guys?
Clear, Miss.
Okay, all right. So can I hear from the others as well?
Yes, Miss. Clear.
Oh, right. Okay, so then we can start discussing the theories of team development. Okay, so there are two theories of team development. There are lots of theories of team development, but in this, for this autumn diploma, we need to talk only about two theories of team development. Okay, so these are not the only two theories for team development. It's just that for this autumn diploma, we are going to talk about, there are many team developments, but we are going to focus only on two of those. Okay, so the theories that we will be talking about are Tuckman's group theory made in 1965 and Belbin's team roles. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk about the first one, Tuckman's group theory. Okay, so Tuckman's model of team formation. Okay, so before we move on to the team formation theory, before we move on to Tuckman's theory, why do we learn about teamwork? Okay, so why do we have to learn? Why should we learn about teamwork? Because teamwork is something that all of us need to do in our academic life and in our professional life as well. Okay, so even in our academic life, we need teamwork. There are situations where you have to work with other people in the class, right? And even when it comes to your professional life, there are lots of situations where you have to work with other people in the workplace. Okay, so team working is a skill which is critical for everyone's academic and career success. Okay, so this is why you should learn about teamwork. Okay, so now we can go into the Tuckman's group theory. Okay, so yeah, so before we learn what is Tuckman's group theory, we'll learn a little bit about the person who invented this theory. Okay, so it is called Tuckman's group theory because this theory was made by a person called Bruce Tuckman. Okay, so that is why the theory is called Tuckman's group theory. Okay, so let's see who this person is. Okay, so Bruce Tuckman is a psychologist. He's an American psychologist, and he's an American psychologist who did a lot of research about group dynamics. Okay, so he did a lots of research about group dynamics. He studied teams, groups. Okay, so that was his area of research. Okay, so he studied what makes teams succeed, what makes them fail. Okay, isolated teams, stressful conditions. These are the areas that he studied. Okay, and he also reviewed psychological literature on team dynamics. So since he is a psychologist, he reviewed whatever the literature, whatever the research papers or books or whatever the literature written about team dynamics. Okay, and he studied about the development of small groups. Okay, so these are the areas that he studied. Okay, so he studied all these areas and came up with this uh, theory called Tuckman's group theory or the Tuckman's model. Okay, so Bruce Tuckman, the Tuckman model of team formation published in Psychological Bulletin in 1965. Okay, so this theory was published in 1965. Yes, so according to this theory, there are so in Tuckman's model, in Tuckman's group theory, there are 5 stages in team development. Like according to Tuckman's theory, when you develop a team, when you develop a group, you go through these 5 stages. So according to this Tuckman's theory, there are 5 stages in team development. Okay, so these are the 5 stages: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Okay, so this Tuckman's theory it was published in 1965, but it was updated continuously by other researchers as well. Okay, so here you can see the Tuckman's model. Okay, so there are, as I just mentioned, there are 5 stages. According to Tuckman's model, there are 5 stages in team development. Okay, so every team goes through these 5 stages: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Okay, so as you can see, this is a cycle. Okay, so forming leads to storming. It never stops. Okay, one thing leads to the next thing. Forming leads to storming. Storming leads to norming. Norming leads to performing. Performing leads to adjourning, and adjourning leads to forming again. Okay, so it is a cycle. It happens in a cyclic manner. Okay, so now we can start talking about each stage in detail. So what happens in the forming stage? What happens in the storming stage? What happens in norming, performing, and adjourning stages? Okay, so now we can look into each stage in detail. Okay, so now let's discuss what happens in the forming stage. Okay, so these are the things that happen in the forming stage. Okay, so in the forming stage, according to Tuckman's theory, forming stage is the first stage of team development. Okay, so during the forming stage, you get to know your teammates. Okay, so these things that I highlighted over here. These ones are the things that happen during the forming stage. You get to know your teammates, you identify your teammates' strengths and weaknesses, you start trusting your teammates, you develop trust among um, each other, and you try team building activities, and you think about selecting roles, and you also have team leaders during this forming stage. Okay, and you start to focus on task definition, like, so there is a certain purpose for having, for developing a team, for developing a group, right? So during the forming stage, uh, you start to focus about the purpose of making this group, of making this team, and also you start focusing about the tasks that you are supposed to do. Okay, so as a group, as a team, there are certain tasks that you are supposed to do. Okay, so you start focusing on the tasks that you are supposed to do, and also focusing on the purpose of making this group or making this team. Okay, so these are the things that happen during the forming stage. Okay, so during the forming stage, so as you can see here, forming stage is the stage where you get to know your teammates, right? So it's the stage where you get to know each other. Okay, so during this forming stage, you should have careful body language, polite speech, small talk. Okay, so you should have these characteristics during the forming stage. Okay, so your body language should be careful, your speech should be polite. Okay, because it is the stage where you get to know, where you communicate with your teammates and get to know each other. Okay, so you should have proper body language and polite speech during this stage. Okay, and so there can be a little bit of anxiety as well during the forming stage, because this is the first stage, right? So you are still getting to know each other. You are still getting to know the purpose of having the group. You are still getting to know the tasks that you are supposed to perform. Okay, so you are getting to know things during this stage, right? So because of this, it is very natural to have a little bit of an anxiety also during this forming stage. Okay, so these are the duties that should be done by the leaders during the forming stage. Okay, so there is a group leader. Every team or every group has a leader, right? So during the forming stage, these are the things that leaders should do. Okay, so the leaders should develop, the leaders should focus on the team structure, and they should develop clear team rules or guidelines. And they should also make sure that the team environment is a professional environment. Okay, and they can also uh, create paperwork like agendas, minutes, or bylaws. Okay, because like paperwork can be used to reduce anxiety. So I told you that anxiety can exist during the forming stage. Okay, so this anxiety can be reduced to a certain extent through paperwork, because in paperwork everything is written down in detail, right? So paperwork can be used to reduce the anxiety levels to a certain extent. Okay, so this is about the forming stage. So now we can move on to the next stage, which is the storming stage. So let's see what are happening in the storming stage. Okay, so storming stage, these are the things that happen in the storming stage. Okay, so storming stage is the stage in which you brainstorm your ideas. Like everybody is expressing their ideas and their solutions. Okay, and so there will be a lot of assumptions and opinions that you need to test during this storming stage. Okay, so storming stage is all about brainstorming. Okay, so everybody is expressing their ideas, assumptions, and opinions. Okay, so the work habits of the team members will also be revealed during this storming stage. Okay, so frustration and conflicts can also appear during the storming stage, because as I just mentioned, this is the stage in which people are expressing their opinions and ideas. Everybody is expressing their opinions and ideas. So there can be differences in these ideas or opinions. So due to these differences, frustration and conflict can also appear. Okay, so um, yeah. So during the storming stage, team members should know how to be matured and how to respect each other. Okay, and if something happened, if a conflict or a frustration happened, team members should also know how to address the critic or the ideas. Like, you should not target people. The team members should know how to address the ideas or the opinions instead of targeting people. Okay, so address critic ideas, not people. That means you have to, when if you have to criticize, criticism is completely fine. If you feel like you need to criticize, you need to criticize the idea or the opinion, but not the person. Okay, so these are the qualities that the team members should have during the storming stage. Okay, so um, the leaders should be sort of assertive during this storming stage. Okay, so assertive means you have to have really good like a really good leadership skills during the storming stage. Okay, and I mean, because there can be, as we mentioned just now, there can be conflicts and frustrations, right? So if you do not have really good leadership skills, leaders will not be able to tackle these frustrations and conflicts that might appear, right? So the leaders should be assertive. They should have really good leadership skills during this stage. Okay, and yeah, and you should help your team members to give their best and achieve the team goal. Okay, and that's about storming stage. And now, what happens in the norming stage? Okay, so in the norming stage, so norming stage is the third stage, right? So when you come to the norming stage, you have already passed two previous stages. Okay, so when it comes to the norming stage, team members are aware of their roles because now the team members have already passed two stages, right? So now team members are not new anymore. Now they are aware of the roles that they are supposed to do. Okay, and yeah, and if you look at your team members, the team members will have a relaxed body language and speech as well. The way that your team members speak and their body language will be much more relaxed than the previous two stages. Okay, because now, like, because this is the third stage. Now your team members are sort of used to the team, like sort of adjusted to the team, right? So because of this adjusting, their body language and speech will become much more relaxed. Okay, and yeah, and this is the stage where you replace, like, where you replace words like me and I with we and us. Okay, so you start thinking as a group. Instead of saying me, myself, I, use words like us, we, ourselves, likewise. Okay, so it is the stage where you start thinking like a group. Okay, and all the team members will take individual responsibility for group decisions. Okay, so once you take a group decision, if that decision goes wrong, you should not put blame on certain people because you took the decision as a group, right? So you can't put blame on individual people. Instead, you have to like take whatever the outcome, handle whatever the outcome as a team. Even if it is not a good outcome, you need to handle it as a team. Okay, and yeah, so during this stage, team members are willing to compromise. They like to compromise, and they work according to team rules and team decisions. Okay, so what should leaders do during the norming stage? Okay, so during the norming stage, leaders should back off, monitor and enable, be ready to reassert if necessary. Okay, so during the norming stage, the leaders should sort of back off. Back off means in the norming stage, Yeah, back off means in the norming stage, you don't have to tell each and everything to your, like, you don't have to explain everything A to Z to your team members, because your team members are now aware of their roles. Now they are aware of their jobs, right? So now as a leader, you can sort of take a little bit of a rest. Okay, so the leaders, the norming stage is the time for the leaders to sort of back off. Okay, so you have to back off. So back off means you can't do like, okay, now you guys handle and I'm leaving. You can't do that. But backing off means you have to you do not interfere unnecessarily, but you should monitor. Like you should monitor if the team members are working properly or not. Okay, and if it is needed, you um, be assertive again. You uh, start using your leadership roles again if it is needed. But if not, you sort of back off and monitor what all the team members are doing, if they are doing the things well or not. Okay, and then the next stage is performing. Okay, so in this stage, you can see the synergy. Synergy means everybody working together. Self-directed but oriented to team goals. Okay, so everyone is during the performing stage. Everybody is self-directed but also oriented towards the team goals or team objectives. Okay, so during this stage, team members support each other. Okay, so this can be one of the most enjoyable stages out of all the stages, the performing stage, because there is synergy, everybody's working together. Okay, so you can enjoy yourself working with your team members. Okay, so yeah, so few teams reach this stage and usually only after working on several projects together. Okay, so like yeah, so like usually you reach this stage after working on several projects together. Okay, so when you work on several projects together, like it uh, it improves your team working skills, right? So when your teamwork skills are improved, you can reach this stage quite fast. Okay, so you don't like when you have really when all the team members have really good teamwork in skills, they can go through the first few stages really fast and reach this stage quickly. Okay, so that is the meaning of this sentence. Okay, so during this performing stage, what should the leaders do? Okay, so the leaders should now stay out of the team. Okay, so they should stay out of the team and be a facilitator. Okay, so the leader, this is what the leader should do during this performing stage. The leader should stay out of the team and become a facilitator. Facilitator means a supporter. So if a support is needed, you provide your support. But if not, you do not interfere with anything. You stay out. But if a support is needed, then you come in and support, and then you go back. If a support is needed again, then you come back and provide the support, and then you go back. Okay, so this is how a leader should behave during the performing stage. Okay, and the final stage in the Tuckman's group team development theory is adjourning. Okay, so adjourning means the end of the project. Okay, so adjourning is this is the stage where you reach the end of your project. Okay, so you take pride in your work, you celebrate successes, and if you have any failures, you go through you study your failures and you review what are the lessons that you can learn from those failures. Okay, so you enjoy the loyalty provided by all the team members. Okay, so these are the things that happen during the adjourning stage. Okay, but during the adjourning stage, you have to beware of avoidant behavior or formation of cliques. Okay, so formation of cliques means when there are groups inside groups. Okay, so these things should be avoided in the adjourning stage. Okay, so I mean, you are one group, right? You should not have small groups. I mean, you should not have small groups inside one group. People should not get into cliques and form small groups inside one whole group. That is not good. Okay, because you are one whole team, so you have to work as a one whole team. Okay, so this kind of things should be formation of cliques should be avoided. Okay, so these are the things happen during the adjourning stage. Okay, so guys, basically these are the stages mentioned in the Tuckman's model. Okay, so yeah, so these are few things that you need to understand about the Tuckman's model. Okay, so we discussed that during the storming stage there can be frustrations and conflicts. Okay, so having conflicts during a storming stage is not a sign of defective team. Okay, so if you have a conflict during the storming stage, it doesn't mean that it is a bad team. Okay, it doesn't mean that the team is not good. Conflicts are very normal, but the only thing is you should handle the conflicts in a productive manner, not in a destructive manner. Okay, because conflicts can be very productive if you handle it well. Okay, but if you handle it poorly, then it will be destructive. Okay, so it's up to you to decide whether to handle it well or whether to handle it poorly. If you handle it well, the conflicts are productive. But if you handle it poorly, like if you handle it badly, then the conflicts are destructive. Okay, so it's okay to return to a previous stage if circumstances warrant. Okay, so that means, like, for example, if you start sort of struggling in the norming stage, you can keep the norming stage aside for a bit, for a while, and go back to the storming stage. Okay, so if you struggle, if you start struggling in a certain stage, you can always keep that aside and go back to the previous stage. Okay, and improve yourself in the previous stage and then come to the next stage. Okay, so going back to previous stages is possible. Okay, so in conclusion, we can say that Tuckman's model is a very powerful, insightful, useful model. But this Tuckman's model is not the only team development theory that we have. There are lots of lots of other team development theories as well. So according to the need of the team, according to the team objectives and goals, we can choose the theory that works the best for us. Okay, so that's about Tuckman's team development theory. Okay, so now we can start talking about Belbin's team roles. Okay, so I told you that there are two theories that we'll be talking about, Tuckman's theory and Belbin's team roles. Okay, so since we are done with Tuckman's theory, we can start talking about the Belbin's team roles. Okay, so this Belbin's team roles, uh, this theory has been invented by a person called Dr. Meredith Belbin from Cambridge University. Okay, so so Dr. Belbin devoted, like, he spent over 10 years of research into team effectiveness. Okay, so his area of research was team effectiveness. He studied about team effectiveness. Okay, and okay, so and from his research, these are the things that he figured out. Okay, so he figured out that individual excellence of the team members was not a predictor of a team result. Okay, so you can have excellent individuals in your team, but the team can still be a failure. Okay, so so like just because you have excellent individuals in the team, in a team, doesn't mean the team is going to be a success. It can be a failure as well. Okay, so because team uh, like team working is like, you need team spirit to teamwork, right? So yeah, so individual excellence does not predict a team's result. Okay, just because you have excellent individual performance doesn't mean that the team's performance will be good as well. Okay, so yeah, so individual excellence doesn't predict the team's result. And he he recognized that the way that the individual members behaved contributed to or detracted from the team's effectiveness. Okay, so he identified 9 predictable behavior patterns or team roles. So during his research, he figured out certain behavior patterns that can be observed in team members when they are working as a team. Okay, so these behavior patterns are called team roles. Okay, so since Belbin is the one who figured out these team roles, we call them Belbin's team roles. Okay, so Belbin's team roles means uh, it's a set of behavioral patterns that Dr. Meredith Belbin observed in team members when they are working as a team. Okay, so now, so what is a team role? So team role is basically a behavioral pattern, a tendency to behave, contribute, and interrelate with others in a particular way when working in a team. Okay, so basically a team role means a behavioral pattern. Okay, so according to Belbin, there are 9 roles. There are 9 team roles according to Belbin. Okay, so these are the 9. These are the 9 show you. These are the 9 uh, team roles. Okay, plant, specialist, monitor evaluator, shaper, implementer, completer, finisher, coordinator, team worker, resource investigator. These are the 9 roles that we are going to talk about. Okay, so Dr. Belbin also categorized. He grouped these 9 roles into 3 categories. So the 9 roles are grouped into 3 categories called thinking roles, action-oriented roles, and people-oriented roles. So under thinking roles, you have plant specialist, monitor evaluator. Under action-oriented roles, you have shaper, implementer, completer, finisher. Under people-oriented roles, you have coordinator, team worker, resource investigator. Okay, so now let's see what are the. Okay, so let me zoom this in, guys, because I don't think you can see otherwise. Okay, so in this table, so in this table here in the first column, you can see the roles, the 9 roles, and so these are the short forms for roles, guys, like PLMESP. These are the short forms for these roles. For example, plant in short form, you can call it PL. Okay, so don't get confused. These are the short forms. And here, like this is the behavioral pattern. In the second column, you can see a description about the behavioral pattern of this role. So plant means what kind of behavior? Okay, the behavioral pattern of plant. How does a monitor or an evaluator behaves? The behavioral pattern of monitor evaluator. Okay, so you can see a description about each role in the second column. And in the third column, you can see allowable weaknesses. Okay, so the weaknesses that are allowable, the weaknesses that are the mistakes that you are allowed to make in the team. Okay, so let's look at the first role, plant. Okay, so plant is, the first role is plant. Okay, so plant is someone who is creative and imaginative. Okay, so like a plant is someone who has very creative ideas and imaginative ideas, a free thinking person. Okay, so so what are the allowable weaknesses? What are the weaknesses that a plant is allowed to have? Okay, too preoccupied to fully communicate. Okay, so since this is a very since plant is a very creative and an imaginative person, sometimes, I mean, because he or she spends so much time imagining and being creative and uh, so much time being imaginative and creative, right? So sometimes it can be difficult for you to communicate to them. Okay, so that is an allowable weakness. And if you look at the second role, monitor evaluator, okay, so monitor evaluator is a person who sees all options and judges correctly. Okay, and what are the allowable weaknesses that this person is allowed to have? Okay, so monitor evaluators can be overly critical. They can be too critical sometimes. And sometimes they might find it difficult to inspire others. Okay, and specialist. Okay, so specialist is a dedicated, single-minded person, like a self-starting dedicated person. And a specialist provides rare knowledge and skills. Okay, so specialist is a person who has a rare knowledge and skills, like knowledge and skills which are not common. Okay, and like allowable weakness dwells on technicalities. Okay, so a specialist can be a person who thinks a lot about the technical stuff, about the technicalities, like worry a lot about the technicalities. Okay, that can be a weakness that they have. Okay, and the next role, shaper. Okay, so shaper is a person who shapes other people. Okay, so they are challenging, dynamic, and they are very motivated to overcome obstacles or challenges. That is how a shaper works. Okay, and their weakness is sometimes they offend people's feelings because due to I mean, because of trying to shape other people too much, they might end up offending other people's feelings. That is a weakness. An implementer, next role. So implementer is a practical and a reliable person who turns ideas into actions. Okay, so these people, the weakness is these people can sometimes be a bit inflexible. Okay, and completer finisher. Completer finisher is a person who is um, like who tends to do things as perfectly as possible, like a perfectionist kind of a person. Okay, so this person finds errors, polishes and perfects. Okay, so this person is good in finding errors and trying to correct them. Okay, so a weakness, I mean, since this person is trying to, since completer or finisher is a person who tries to be perfect all the time, like this person worries a lot, right? So worrying unnecessarily can be a weakness of this role, completer finisher. Okay, and coordinator. Okay, so coordinator is a mature, confident person uh, who can clarify goals and who can distribute work effectively among the team members. Okay, and the weakness of this person is this person can be seen as a manipulative person. Okay, and sometimes this person might struggle to complete their own workload. Okay, so that can be a weakness. And team worker. Okay, so team worker is a person who is very cooperative, who is very good in team working, who is very cooperative, perceptive, and diplomatic, and like who listens to other people really well. Okay, and a weakness of this person can be this being indecisive sometimes. Okay, so indecisive means when you find it difficult to take decisions. Okay, being indecisive means unable to take decisions. Okay, so this is a weakness that can be faced by the team worker, being indecisive at certain times. Okay, and resource investigator. Okay, so resource investigator is a person who is very outgoing, enthusiastic, communicative, uh, always explores more opportunities, develop contacts with other people. Okay, and the weakness of this person can be he or she can lose interest once initial enthusiasm expires. So that means during the start of the project, in the beginning of the project, this person has lots of enthusiasm. This person is very enthusiastic, but over time, he or she might lose the enthusiasm. Okay, so this is a weakness that this person can have. Okay, so guys, so all these weaknesses that we discussed in this third column, okay, all these weaknesses are allowable weaknesses. Okay, so allowable weaknesses means these weaknesses are allowed inside the team. You are allowed to have these weaknesses in the team, inside the team. Okay, so that is why it is called allowable weaknesses. Okay, and yeah, so in order to succeed, in order to be successful, a team needs a mix of all 9 roles. Okay, a team needs a mixture of all nine of these roles to be successful. Okay, so since there are 9 Belbin roles, some people think that this means you need 9 people to work on a team. That is an incorrect interpretation. Okay, so Belbin's team role model does not mean that you need 9 people on the team. Okay, so you can have less than 9 or more than 9 as well. Okay, because like these in Belbin's team roles, these team role, as we discussed earlier, these team roles are behavioral patterns, right? So one person can have several behavioral patterns, right? So I can be a plant monitor, evaluator, and a shaper all together. One person can have many behavioral patterns. Okay, so it's okay to have even less than you can have less than 9 people in the group as well, and you can have more than 9 in the group as well. Okay, so this model does not mean that you need 9 people on the team. You can have as many as you want, less than 9 or more than 9. Both are possible. Okay, so um, each individual likely has 3 of the following. Okay, so each individual has these uh, these 3 types of roles: natural or preferred roles, manageable roles, least preferred roles. Okay, so natural or preferred roles means the things that you like to do. What I like to do. The things that you like to do are called natural or preferred roles. Manageable roles means you do not like these roles that much, but I can do it if it is needed. Okay, so manageable roles means like manageable. You do not like them very much, but you like to do those roles if it's needed. අද ඕනේ වුණොත් කරන්න කියන්නේ එහෙම ලොකු කැමැත්තක් නැති roles, but එහෙම ලොකු කැමැත්තක් නැති වුණත් if it is needed, I'm willing to do those roles. Okay, so those are called manageable roles. You are not extremely passionate about these roles, but you are willing to do them if it is needed. So those kind of roles are called manageable roles. And least preferred roles means the roles that you would never like to do. Okay, so what I wish someone else would do. Okay, so the least preferred roles are the roles that you do not like to do. Okay, so yeah, so these are, so every single person has 3 of these roles. Okay, so now let's see what are the factors that determine individual behavior in a team. Okay, so if you think whether your team roles can change or not, yes, your team roles can change. Okay, so your team roles can change as a result of these factors. Okay, mental abilities, personality, role learning, values and motivations, external influences, experience. Okay, so your behavior changes due to all these reasons. Okay, so your behavioral patterns or your team roles can change due to all these reasons mentioned here. Okay, so team roles is not something fixed. Okay, team roles is something that can change over time due to these reasons. Okay, so yeah, so we discussed about allowable weaknesses, right? So I told you that allowable weaknesses are the weaknesses that you are allowed to have inside the team. Okay, so yeah, so these are the weaknesses that you are allowed to have inside the team. Okay, so you have to make sure that allowable weaknesses do not become disallowable. Okay, so you have to make sure to keep your allowable weaknesses as allowable. You should not cross the line and make it an disallowable weakness. Okay, so for example, lose a plant's attention during a meeting because they are dreaming up a creative solution. Okay, so if you are so for example, if you are having a team meeting, so there is a role in Belbin's team roles, there is a role called plant, right? So let me show you. Okay, so plant. Okay, so plant is a person who is very creative and imaginative. Okay, so during a during a team meeting, this plant might lose his or her attention on the meeting because he or she is dreaming about a creative solution for their teamwork. Okay, so maybe the plant, let's say during a team meeting, a plant, uh, a plant means like plant means not the tree plants. I'm talking about this team role. Okay, so in Belbin's 9 team roles, you can see there is a role called plant. Okay, so plant is a person who is very creative and imaginative. Okay, so for example, during a team meeting, let's say this plant is dreaming about something, dreaming or thinking about a creative solution that he or she can give to the teamwork. හරිද? ඒ කියන්නේ team එක මොකක් හරි කරන වැඩේට අදාළ දෙයකට අවශ්‍ය creative or creative solution එකක් ගැන එයා හිත හිත නම් ඉන්නේ. He or she might not be able to pay attention to the meeting, right? Like he or she might lose focus and will not be able to pay attention to the meeting because he or she is thinking about something creative that he or she can do for the team. Okay, so this is okay. This weakness is okay. But if the plant forgets to come to a meeting because they are thinking about something else. So if you forgot to come to the meeting because you were dreaming or thinking about something else, this is not okay. Okay, so this not attending the meeting, not coming to the meeting is not okay. Coming to the meeting and losing focus because of dreaming about a creative solution is okay. Okay, so this is okay, but this is not okay. Okay, so you have to make sure what is okay and what is not okay. You have to make sure that you keep allowable weaknesses as allowable, and you have to ensure that these weaknesses does not become disallowable. Okay, so when you are working as a team, the best you can do is you have to focus on what you can do best. Okay, so you have most preferred, manageable, and least preferred roles. We discussed these 3 earlier, right? Most preferred means the ones that you like to do. Manageable means if it is needed, you would do it. And least preferred roles means that the things that you never like to do. Okay, so when you are working as a team, the best that you can do is you can understand and you can improve yourself in preferred roles. Okay, so you can choose your preferred roles rather than struggling to be good at your least preferred roles. Okay, so rather than choosing least preferred roles and trying to be good at those least preferred roles, you can choose something that you like. Okay, you can choose your preferred roles, and then by doing those preferred roles, you can improve yourself. That is the best thing that you can do. When team working, you need to focus on what you do best and what do you like the most. Okay, so guys, that's all about this lecture. So may I know, is there anything that you didn't understand? Are there any questions? Or is everything clear to you?
I am not, ma'am.
All right. Okay, and what about others? Can I hear from others as well? Is everything clear?
Yes, ma'am. Everything clear.
All right. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So then we can end the session now. Okay, so I couldn't upload yesterday's lecture note to class notebook. I will upload it now, and I will upload it upload this one also to the class notebook. And both yesterday's and today's lecture notes are there in the WhatsApp group as well. So you can access it from WhatsApp as well. Okay, so guys, yeah, so that's it for today. We can, since you guys do not have questions, we can wind up the session now. I will see you guys next week again with another lesson, a new lesson. Okay, yeah, guys. So I'll see you guys next week. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
Bye bye, ma'am. Thank you very much.
No worries, Janaka. No worries, guys.